Perfect, lovely, excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the last time you have to concentrate before lunch now, so you could be in the room. This session is a bit different. This is an interactive session, so whereas normally you get told put your phone away, I'm actively going to encourage you to get your phone out and take part. So we're going to have a series of questions come up. You can use the QR code to put your answer in. And I'm joined today by Graham and Ben, who will be able to give you some insights into what we think those answers mean, what we've been seeing out there in the industry. So I'll start by getting Graham to give himself a quick introduction.
Hi, Rebecca, thank you. Morning, everyone. Well, I think just afternoon. My name's Graham Van. I'm the CTO for Fortinet here in the UK and Ireland. I lead a team of solution architects in a solutions and strategy team.
Very good. I'll go next. Hi, I'm Ben Morehouse. I've spoken to a few of you over the last couple of days. I am a sales rep for Nasstar. We've got a bunch of platform-based managed services based around Fortinet's stack.
Perfect. So, as you probably guessed, we're going to be looking today at how ready you are to take on AI. What should you be considering? So, let's see if this is going to work. Excellent. So use your QR code up here. This first question is really setting the scene. What we're looking to understand here is how prepared is your organisation to introduce AI beyond the early use cases and executive mandates? Industry research is showing that around 60% of organisations believe they are not ready or sufficiently prepared to take on that AI-driven risk. So what we're looking at here is whether AI adoption is being supported with the right foundations and operating models. So we can see these results just coming in. Looks like adoption is moving faster than readiness seems to be the top answer.
That's quite interesting. I would have said probably expecting a bit more of a spread there. What do you think, Graham?
I would say it's pretty much in line with what we would have expected when we set the question. The reason for that being is as we go out and talk to customers at the moment, no question AI is a huge excitement across many boardrooms within our customers at the moment. But at the same time, we're seeing customers have to manage through probably some of the biggest transformation of their environment that they've managed through at any time previously. So we're moving very much from a data center-centric architecture. Everything went central, very hub and spoke, to now what we would say is much more of a hybrid enterprise architecture. And that's really being driven by a couple of things, whether it's data and applications now being implemented in a much more hybrid model across clouds, across SaaS, across private data centers. And then what we're seeing in the world of work. And we've obviously gone through COVID. We saw a big shift of everyone being sent home and working from home. And we saw the first generation SASE solutions put in to support that. But now we're seeing this big shift around a return to work, and it's managing the balance of that. At the same time, we're seeing organizations move from sort of more private MPLS-based sort of backbone services to the use of the internet as that backbone. So if you throw all of that together, we also see in many organizations that the security team and the networking team still work pretty much independently of each other. And there's a lot of opportunity, we think, for tighter collaboration between those groups, and that's going to be important. But you put all of that together, there's a lot of complexity there. And I think that shift to those hybrid architectures and that new sort of hybrid enterprise architecture that customers are looking to manage, it's perhaps not unsurprising that with this wave of AI coming down from the business, i.e. this is something we need to do, a lot of organizations are questioning their readiness.
Which part of the readiness do you think is or the architecture or the deployment of various tools, which part of it is slowing it down the most, do you think, in your experience?
I think from experience what we see, some of the biggest ones aren't actually technology based, it's probably more organizational. It's the fact that the technology around networking and security are still under separate teams. They've got their own trends, their own drivers, their own kind of priorities that aren't necessarily well aligned. But what we do see as organizations start to sort of embrace the concept of a secure networking platform to be able to bring all of that together and maybe lay out the next generation foundation for the business, a real opportunity for a lot more collaboration between those networking and security teams. And it's through that collaboration that we think organizations can get their plan in place. And again, really sort of this theme of AI readiness, I think, is something that's going to be increasingly important and something we're going to start to read more and more about within companies.
I tried this analogy with Graham yesterday and it didn't really land, but I'm going to try it with the audience. It's a little bit, it feels a little bit like, the production line that Henry Ford came up with. There was a brilliant, completely modernised the way in which we manufacture cars, but everyone had a siloed job. Someone was responsible for wheels and tightening things, someone was responsible for the chassis and the engine. But you knew your own thing. You just knew your own thing, and I think it feels a little bit like we're moving towards the modern version of that, the total production system that probably enough people will be familiar with that I can make that reference, where everybody does everything, and you jump on things together, and there's a high level of visibility about what's going on. There's constant feedback going through, and the teams aren't separated by skill set. They're brought together to have a single outcome as a result of them. Did that it all land as a metaphor? Yeah? Yeah, there's a few nods there. Good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good. Right, good.
Should have put the question up there.
Thanks for those who nodded.
Well, I'm going to move us on to the next thing then, and you can add your next story to that one. So what we're looking at for this next question is we want to look at that growing threat landscape. So, I love it when it works. How well do you manage that expanded attack surface with the growing volume of insider-based threats? So what we're talking about here is what you touched on earlier, Graham, around that hybrid working and hybrid cloud are no longer transitional. Organisations are encouraging us to both come back into the office, but to stay working at home. It creates these really complex environments, this expanded attack surface. And that just means that there's even more complexity for organisations to deal with, basically. And some organisations have, since moving back into COVID, have created an environment that's fit for purpose and that can take on that challenge. And others are really struggling with this, aren't they?
Another spread on that one, isn't there? But you're right.
Yeah.
Right. To your last point, isn't it? It looks like the audience, people have actually realised what's happening and tried to make adjustments, haven't they?
Yeah. And this really, these results are what we've been seeing with some of our customers. So what they have is great for people coming back into the office, but all of a sudden they want to deploy AI as well, and that makes things even more complex when people are working from home. So what's your take on this, Graham?
Again, not surprising, because I think, as I say, I think the concept of hybrid working especially and the introduction of cloud services has been taken on pretty well by a lot of organisations. But I think when you look at the security approaches that organisations have taken up to now, that's where I think we still see some need for some work and potentially for attention. If we see the way that a lot of organisations have had their security model implemented before, it's very much around the concept of being inside or outside, or being in a trusted environment and an untrusted environment. And people built up sort of DMZs at the edge of their network, typically in their data centres, as the breakout point between the inside and the outside. And if you were on the inside, everything was taken as trusted. Now, if we say we've kind of got applications and data applications and data up here, users and devices down here, and the main aim of everything we're providing is to get those apps and users access to the apps and the data. Then in essence, a lot of our security model was built around traffic going in that north-south direction. It was about ensuring that if you're on the inside, everything's trusted, it's good. We're going through some sort of breakout point, and at that point, we'll apply security services to say what can go in and what can go out, which is great, obviously, for that north-south traffic. But what we've seen in many organisations, and probably growing more recently, is the concept of the insider threat. And this is where somebody comes in and actually has credentials to get into that trusted environment, and then potentially to be able to send traffic east-west within the environment, where we typically have far less security control at the moment, because why would we have control there? It's trusted, it's on the inside. But the issue is, when we look at some of the stuff that's made the headlines over the back end of last year, that seems to be increasingly pointing towards insider threat, where somebody came in with legitimate credentials, got a legitimate login into that trusted environment, and was able to then sort of send ransomware east-west or malware east-west within the organization. And it's surprising how few organizations really have an answer at the moment to that lateral threat or that east-west spread of threats and things like ransomware within their organization. And we can see just how significant that can be when it happens. All we're saying is with the return to work and that hybrid workspace, we're seeing a lot less control over the devices potentially coming in and out of the organization around who works where and when. And therefore the potential for that insider threat we see growing, which is why actually it's so important we think about the deployment of zero trust architectures. So in effect, we don't trust anything. And everything is inherently treated as untrusted from the get-go. And by implementing zero trust, we can actually start to say that we can now actually lock down and guarantee every single connection everywhere and anywhere within our environment, adding that whole new layer of security, which we think really is really, really important as we evolve to these sort of hybrid architectures.
Can I just throw something in there a little
Sure.
bit? Because one of the themes that we try and, which me and you've been going back and forth on, is this idea of simplicity, isn't it? So having ZTNA is clearly the right, it sounds like it's the right thing to do, isn't it, to add, to improve your security posture. But actually, it's another thing to implement in your environment. It's another addition of complexity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as as everyone will recognise, complexity is fantastic for malicious actors, isn't it? They want it to be as complex as possible because it creates more opportunities. And obviously, we're advocating, as we would do, for sort of platform-based service rather than those point solutions things, aren't we? So,
Yeah.
I mean, what's your response to that, or what's your idea behind that? Is that we implement ZTNA, but presumably you don't go there immediately.
Well, I think the other thing, when we start to look at hybrid environments and we look at DMZs and we look at the existing potential for vendor sprawl within the environment, it's not unusual to go and see customers today where there could be 60, 70, 80 different vendors that are all in that environment. So the actual complexity of looking to manage that and keep that all under management and under control can be incredibly complex for organizations, but it also, at the points of intersect or the points where we've got connections between those devices, there's potentially gaps that are all points where things can be exploited. And that's why we'd very much advocate anyone moving to a hybrid architecture and saying we're ready would be one that's really moving much more to a platform-based approach, significantly shrinking down the number of vendors that are in play and making that a far simpler environment to manage. And I would actually add that as a key element of saying, are we really ready?
I think you're right, though. I think simplicity from a technology point of view and all the advantages that gives is amazing. But also from a practical point of view, a contract management point of view, like a billing point of view, an account management point of view as well. I mean, if you've got 15 different suppliers, you've got 15 different account managers to deal with, and nobody wants that, do they? No one wants to see 15 versions of me. So I think what we'd obviously advocate for in this instance is a sort of a self-paced journey towards a platform, a managed platform-based security posture. We're working through a project at the moment with a UK retailer that's got 260 sites. Looking at SD-WAN, but also adding on other security elements as we grow that account. But it's a 2 to 3 year project as we work our way around that customer. They've looked at the market and looked at the types of partners they want to work with, type of technology they want to use, type of partner they want to work with, people they trust, and set a path that they're now heading towards with us, which obviously is I think it will deliver everything that Graham's just been talking through.
But I think you make an interesting point there. You know, there's definitely a movement from complexity to simplicity. But as you say, with that particular customer, it's not something we're looking to rip out and fix in just a few months. It's a journey that we want to go on with those customers and make it work with them rather than going in, rip it out, fix it immediately. It's got to be a journey because this is so much more complex, and you've got to understand, as you say, your 15 different account managers will all want to weigh in, and you've got to make that work for that particular organisation as you go through.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to looking at how you should be using, or if you are using, AI as part of your defense. So we all know that AI is used by attackers, but to what degree do you currently deploy AI as part of your threat landscape today? So we've talked about AI being both an opportunity and a risk, and the fact that organisations are looking to leverage that. But where are you using AI as part of your defence, whether it's widespread, experimental, or not part of your security approach at the moment?
This is nicknamed the Terminator question, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the setup, isn't it, for the first Terminator film? They put an AI out that was due to protect humans, and ended up deciding that humans were the worst, biggest threat to humans, and then turned on us. So to what extent are we investing heavily in creating a post-apocalyptic world full of robots?
Well, it turns out not all.
Oh, good.
So that's
Not
good.
yet then, not yet.
We're not
Got a few years
completely
left.
there yet, Ben. What are you seeing out there with customers that you're talking to, Graham, around deploying AI as part of that threat landscape? Because we know attackers are using AI, so we should be using it.
Absolutely. And I think this highlights some of the concerns that we highlighted in the last question, which are, and it's why I'm not actually that surprised with the answer, which is in places but not everywhere, is because if I've got an environment that's built up from 10, 20, 30 different vendors, well, those vendors will all have different AI-based tools to defend their part of the environment. And therefore the challenge is, okay, well, I'm defending bits, but when we look at AI as a sort of used by attackers, it's getting incredibly sophisticated. Anyone who's been reading the press over the last couple of weeks will have seen around some of the new tools that are starting to become available that can look on a vendor by vendor basis and start to identify where some of the gaps are and where some of the challenges might be. Well, it's this concept of running a multi-vendor environment, which is why it's happening in pieces. The issue in that situation is I've got to keep all of those environments patched up to the latest versions of what's going on. And then in theory, the AI tools being used by each of those different vendors, there needs to be some way of them actually communicating with each other. And then when we start to get into the complexity of AI models, talking to AI models and agreeing what's the best action, well, it starts to get incredibly complex. And it's again why we're saying if we can start to move to a platform-based approach where we start to simplify the environment and start to use AI as a defensive strategy, which is absolutely valid, well, the key things then become AI has to be able to detect the vulnerability, which is incredibly important, and do that as quickly as possible, ideally faster than the attackers can understand that the vulnerability exists. But then it very quickly moves to remediation. So, okay, I've got a vulnerability, but how fast can I actually remediate my environment? Because it's that gap between detection and remediation that's the real challenge, because that's when you're open to attack. And that's when AI can be getting used on the outside to actually put your environment under attack. And the more vendors, the more AI tools that I've got, and the more complex the environment, the tougher it gets to remediate, because you end up with vendors pointing at vendors.
Yeah.
That's not our problem, that's your problem. And we're getting to a point where that's not phone calls between people, that's machines talking to machines, trying to resolve those types of queries. It gets incredibly complicated. And that's why we think there's just a completely new approach required. We have to start moving customers from where they are on the journey Rebecca mentioned towards much more of a sort of a simplified platform that can leverage AI as a defense, but not only detect, but then very quickly remediate those challenges as well. So you're really using AI to its best effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we're being told that we need to move along. So the last set of questions. I expect groans from all of you when I mention the words regulation and compliance, everyone's favourite subject. So, how well do your foundations support the regulations and proof of compliance as AI adoption accelerates? So we know that AI adoption is accelerating, and it's not necessarily creating these pressures in isolation, but it is amplifying any weaknesses that are already built, that are already out there. So what we're looking at is how do you feel that your organisation is able to meet the regulatory expectations and provide that compliance as AI use continues to scale?
Yeah.
I am not surprised by these results at all.
That's
This is what we talk to people all the time about. This is a real problem. Because you have these regulations that you need to meet, but you have to prove that compliance, and that can be really tricky in the world we're now in, isn't it, Graham?
No, absolutely. And I think one thing we expect is if we look at the use of AI as a tool, if we start to use application data and services that are AI based, well, AI inherently is data oriented, and we're now starting to use all sorts of data to run business processes. And the challenge we have, again, comes around that concept of, do I really have the levels of observability, control, and automation of my environment that allows me to have some kind of confidence over what is running on top of my environment? And can I see it? But if I have end-to-end observability of the environment and I can see everything, it makes it much easier for me to centrally sort of create reports, create some kind of proof that we can hand off to the regulators that says, yes, we're good, but this is only going one way in our view. Regulation is just becoming stricter and stricter. We see laws going through government right now, cybersecurity essentials and others that are going to be a compliance expectation of most organizations, where the inability to prove that you're compliant with those capabilities is going to result in fines to organizations. And we work with many organizations at the moment where the CRO is actively part of the decisions being made at the moment, because budgets are just being parked to the side saying, well, this is the money we'll have to spend on fines when this will go live. And there's an expectation of those fines coming because of the lack of preparedness and readiness. And our view is, well, the answer to that has to be, again, everything we've talked about up to now, which is let's simplify this new hybrid estate. Let's get to a simpler platform where we can deliver the levels of observability required and meet those requirements.
Okay, we're coming towards the end now, aren't we? But I think the compliance is an enabler. It's very easy to groan at. But you think of banking and defence and pharma are probably the three most regulated industries that we've got in the UK and across the world, and they're also some of the biggest and most successful. So compliance isn't necessarily a way of frustrating the business. I think being able to comply quickly, being able to have confidence in your ability to comply and prove it, can be a real enabler for your organisation and a real growth lever as the market changes and as the expectations change within organisations and within the markets they play into. So certainly, I think buying into a platform-based security posture that you've got an awful lot of confidence in, that's perhaps managed with an MSP like Nasstar, that allows you then to build on that and create the sophisticated changes that probably most organisations and organisation leaders are expecting. We've got 1 minute left.
We've got 1 minute left, so we're done with our questions. It's over to you. If you've got questions, it'd be, well, probably not for me, probably best for Graham and Ben, to be honest with you. So, any questions out there? Yes?
Are you seeing security and network teams converge in future-looking organisations? Is there more of a?
I would say what we're seeing in most organisations we meet with at the moment is that these organisations have worked completely separate to each other. And what's happening is we're starting to see this as an excuse for much tighter collaboration. So what we're not saying is we're not walking into organisations and saying, you now need to crunch these two organisations together. But what we're saying are there are projects at the moment that are either being potentially handed to the security team, the networking team, almost on a salt and pepper basis. We're saying there's no reason these shouldn't be getting implemented as secure networking use cases, and get the networking and the security teams use it as an opportunity to drive better collaboration between the teams. Because ultimately these secure networking solutions deliver far better outcomes for the business. And it gives an excuse to start to drive that evolution of the environment towards, as I say, a more secure networking-based platform. but it potentially also frees up cycles for the security teams to maybe focus on the AI and the threat and the new things that are coming down the line in their space, and put more focus on there, where we already know for most organizations there's a massive shortage in skills still from a security perspective. So let's simplify what you've got. At the moment, running a stack of 40 security vendors in a DMZ just doesn't make sense. Like, simplify that, get those security people focused on where the business will get the best return for their focus, which is, are we meeting compliance standards? Are we best protected from the AI threats that are coming our way? And have those teams focus there instead. So we think there's a very rational conversation, and most organizations see, when we have that conversation, see the benefits of starting to evolve the organization.
Yes, at the back.
Are organisations ready for that change? So if I take back what you just said there, which is everyone wants to move from complexity to simplification, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we come up? When is the industry going to be ready to move from platform to service? Because what I need and what I think clients will need is a tap, right?
Yeah.
I got my plumbing coming in from whoever my network provider is. I've got whatever the platforms, as you said, 40 platforms sitting in whichever north, east, south, west.
Yeah.
As an end user here that's being delivered a service, and as an end user that's delivering a service to an ultimate client,
Yeah.
for me, don't really give a damn about the products, because the products are now
Sure.
emerging.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a label, is a label, is a label.
Yeah.
What I want, and I think clients want, is a service.
And I think what we see,
Give me that.
I think what we see is with
Are we ready for? I suppose it's a challenging question.
No.
Are we ready for that?
I think it's very fair, but I think it needs to be dictated by the priorities of use cases that you identify within the business where you're ready to drive change. Because some you're just not contractually ready, and that's why I think it has to be a journey. But if we plot and customize the journey that makes sense to get you from this as-is state to that to-be state, I think it's with partners like Nasstar, where we've got managed service, can deliver managed services. Well, it's fulfilling those use cases via a managed service delivery that starts to affect that shift, so that maybe that platform of the future isn't a DIY platform that's managed. It's an outsourced platform that's managed for you.
We're seeing that to an extent as well. So that I think that's we're at the start. We're within that journey that we're seeing more clients looking to buy in that way. But you're right, it's not just about what suits the particular project. There's a departmental structure behind it. There's budget requirements. It's for a lot of organisations, it's a complicated change to move to a platform-based managed service security posture rather than do something in-house. But yeah, we're certainly seeing it, and for different organisations, it's going at different paces.
Any other questions?
I think we're done.
I think we're done. Yes. Thank you so much. Wonderful audience.
Cheers.
Great interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.